Motorists have been hit by yet another fuel price increase. The price hikes took effect at midnight last night. Petrol prices for both 93 and 95 octane have increased by R1.71, diesel by between R2.76 and R2.84, and illuminating paraffin by R3.70 per litre. So to take this discussion further, we're going to be joined by Annaline van der Poel. She is the CEO of Debt Rescue South Africa. Very good afternoon to you, Annaline. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me.
So we've obviously seen decisions about the fuel hike, which has now increased. And I wonder if we could get your thoughts at this point, perhaps also the knock-on effects that's set to occur, the repercussions for inflation at large as well.
Well, it's obviously, we'd known for the last 2 or 3 months that this could potentially happen, because we knew that OPEC had indicated they were going to cut the production because they wanted the fuel price to go up, or the oil price to go up, which of course is going to affect the fuel price. But having a exchange rate, that fluctuates as much as it does, there's not much area for cushioning the impact. So realistically, when we see fuel prices come through, and especially if they increase as drastically as they have, as of today, the knock-on effect, we've got two impacts on the average consumer. One is direct, any form of transport, whether it's your own vehicle, whether you are making use of public transport, that cost's going to go up. It's going to cost you more expensive, to fill up your vehicle and so forth. But indirectly, it's affecting the cost of the transport of goods. As we know that diesel has gone up quite significantly as well. And in South Africa, our goods are transported by road, meaning diesel is being used, meaning inevitably, us as consumers, we are going to be paying more for our goods that we are purchasing in stores.
Well, there are other factors impeding growth, and this was alluded to by the Reserve Bank governor. He spoke about domestic food prices, he spoke about drier weather conditions, but it's also been compounded by load shedding. How do you think this is adding to the to what consumers are experiencing, approaching breaking point?
Well, it's really, we don't know how much further most consumers can hold on. It's just been a complete onslaught on the average consumer's financial situation and their budgets for the last 18 plus months. We've seen obviously the impact that inflation has on our cost of goods and our living expenses every month. And on the other side, to curb, inflation, the Reserve Bank has no option but to increase the interest rates, which means if you have debt, your debt has become more expensive as well. So, load shedding is definitely not helping, because as we know, currently we're sitting back into stage 6. We've been hovering on the lower ends for the last few weeks, which we've obviously been grateful for. But realistically speaking, we know that our retailers are telling us they're incurring higher costs to keep the lights on in their stores, to make sure that goods are being manufactured and sold and so forth. And they have to do, the only way they can do this is by, investing in alternative sources of energy, whether it be generators or solar. And those costs are going to inevitably end up being, passed on to us again to make sure that they can cover it. So it's not good. It's most definitely having devastating impact on consumers.
I mean, I can imagine issues of credits also come to the fore. And with the scenarios unfolding, given the economic climate, what's been the impact on debt repayments realistically on the ground?
It's been massive. What we are seeing from our side is obviously, and this has been reiterated by our credit providers as well, is consumers are starting to default on assets. It's one thing if maybe they skip a credit card payment or so. When you start skipping payments on vehicles, on home loans and so forth, that becomes really worrisome, because, obviously the form of legal action there could lead all the way to repossession. But the other very worrying trend we're seeing is consumers are turning to credit to put food on the table. So by buying food and paying it off, after you've consumed it, that is very, very worrisome. I mean, especially most people don't tend to pay their credit card at the end of the month in full. So you possibly now, paying it off over 3 or 6 months, there's an interest rate impact. And consumers are turning to payday loans. So you're borrowing money to put food on the table. At the end of the month, you're paying interest on that, which most likely means that you're going to be borrowing more next month to do the same. It's very, very concerning how tough it is out there at the moment.
So at this point, will there be respite for consumers soon? I'm asking this because there's obviously a shifting geopolitical landscape that is affecting dynamics. Perhaps we need to look at the role of leadership as well, even the role of the Reserve Bank in lessening the high cost of living. What's emerging on that front?
Well, I think it's very difficult to say. I mean, if we look towards what's happening in the rest of the world, they're seeing, the inflation easing, and the cost of living crisis has not been as dominant as it was a couple of months ago. And we were following suit. But we do have this one unique situation that they do not have, which is the impact of load shedding at the end of the day. And realistically speaking, as much as I believe that, the Reserve Bank is not taking it lightly when they increase our interest rates when they meet. They have no alternative. Their mandate is to protect our currency. They have to make sure that our currency remains stable. And unfortunately, inflation, as the Reserve Bank governor very clearly put it, our rand is becoming worth less, meaning our buying power is less, meaning that they have to act within their mandate. And the tool available to them, unfortunately, is interest rates. And yes, we've been for the last two cycles, we've seen stabilization, and it's definitely looking a bit better. But if we see interest rates, fuel prices go up as much as they do, inevitably, we know from the last CPI figures, food inflation was the biggest contributor. This means that it doesn't appear that is going to change anytime soon. So if inflation, starts going up again, Reserve Bank's going to be left with very little option but to potentially hike or at least leave it where it is in the interim. Reductions do not seem to be on the cards for quite some time still.
Annaline, I have to end this conversation. Now that we're navigating these waters very quickly, what advice is on offer then for consumers?
First and foremost, plan. Every single cent that you are spending, plan. Make sure you are realistic about what your expenses are. Look for opportunities to cut down if you still can. When you are shopping, please plan your shopping. Make sure you are getting the best, deal out there for your rand. But planning. And if you're in trouble and you've done all of that, seek help from a debt counselor to help prevent legal action and find a solution to manageably repay your debt every month.